I think for first-time people, starting small is very important on all levels. It's really important to know that you don't have to come in with some huge research project to necessarily get funded at Dell. So you might be looking at a small fieldwork project, which you only need one or two people. There's several reasons why you might want to do this. One would be that you really want to do a bigger project, but you aren't sure it's going to fly. You don't have all the pieces together yet, and it's a lot to take on. You might want to do what's called a pilot project. So a small research project that will help you sort of test the waters and see if it's going to be feasible to do a bigger project, and see if you can bring the people together you need to bring together, and get some of the equipment in place, and give yourself a chance to sort of test what you want to do. Maybe a shorter duration. So small fieldwork projects are smaller in scale in all ways. So you don't have as many people working on it. You don't have as long a project. Instead of a full 3 years, you might propose 1 year. You may get some of the equipment you need, but not everything you would need for a big project. But they are very good to think about because they do give you a chance to get started. And if you're coming from a community to the National Science Foundation for funding for the first time, it's often a really good idea to start with a small fieldwork project. When we work on teaching grant writing at the community level, which I do a lot, is to talk about building your credibility as a community-based researcher. And so there's one way to do that is to start with small steps. Pick a small project, get it funded, and do a good job. And then that shows, that you can, like you said, it is feasible, and it's feasible because I just proved it. A small scale example, it worked very well. We have strong outcomes. We can show that there are, a bunch of people in the community involved. We have a lot of community support. We have X amount of data now collected. All of that is very convincing because what you're always trying to do is convince the people who are reviewing your grant of your ability to do the project. And so if you start small, a big agency like the National Science Foundation is more likely to fund you when you start small, especially if you're new, than they are to give you the full amount of funding, even though it's always tempting to go for the bigger amount. It's often smarter if you're starting to go small first. So that's why you might want to do, that's one reason you might want to do a short fieldwork project. The other place you might want to propose a small fieldwork project is after at the end of a big grant, where you've proposed to do some kind of large documentation for the language, and maybe you've come up with a grammar and a dictionary, but you didn't quite finish the dictionary. There's things you still want to do. A small grant can come into play at the end of those big projects too, where you can say, we came up with a talking dictionary and we covered most things, but there were 3 elders that we didn't have a chance to work with who can fill in a lot of information, and we need a small grant to work with them for 1 more year. So the small projects are very strategic in terms of your whole overall large goals for what you want to accomplish, and really useful. They're a very good place to start, and they're a good place to end as well. If you haven't quite finished, that's often the case. You can get extensions on your grant that will keep it going for a while, but sometimes there's just big holes that you wish you'd had a chance to address. And you can come back later with a small fieldwork project to fill in those gaps.